class! Today we are going to look at identifying variables. In our last lesson we talked about the scientific method, and one of the parts of the scientific method is conducting an experiment, and a controlled experiment where we test just one variable. And in that little section of our notes we talked about different types of variables, such as our independent variable versus our dependent variable. Today we're going to look at that and get a little bit more practice. So let's just kind of review what is an independent variable, what is a dependent variable, what is a controlled experiment, and then we're going to add on what are constants. So looking at your notes, we should be able to fill in a lot of this information. If we remember, an independent variable is sometimes called a manipulated variable. An independent variable is going to be the thing that causes a change. So this causes a change. For example, if you change how much sunlight a plant gets, it's going to cause something else to change, such as growth. Sometimes I like to identify this is what you are changing in the experiment. What you are changing in the experiment. The other type of variable is called a dependent variable, and sometimes this is called a responding variable. It's called a responding variable because this is going to change in response to something else. So this changes in response to a change in the independent variable. So like we said with sunlight, what would change in response to you changing sunlight would be the growth of the plant. Another way I like to look at this is typically this is what you are measuring in an experiment. The other thing we should review is what is a controlled experiment. A controlled experiment is called controlled because you are only changing one variable at a time. So typically that variable that you're changing at a time is called the independent variable. So like we put up on the definition above, what you are changing in the experiment. You do not want more than one thing changing in an experiment because you want to know what's causing the effect that you want to see. If you change both sunlight and amount of water, well, which one's causing the plant to grow more? So we can only stick to one variable. And therefore, everything else left in the experiment are typically called constants. So constants is anything that is not changed in the experiment. So anything not changed. Or typically these are kept the same. So if you're a constant, you keep the same. So we have a couple examples that I'm going to read through, and we're going to identify what is the independent variable, the dependent variable, and the constants. Our first example says, Katiana wanted to figure out what type of liquid worked best for growing beans. She watered one with Coca-Cola, one with lemonade, and one with just water. After 1 week, she measured how high they had grown. The plant with Coca-Cola grew 3 inches, the one with lemonade grew 7 inches, and the one with water grew 9 inches. So if you want, please try to pause this video and see if you can actually try to guess these variables on your own. Once you have guessed them, unpause this video because I'll be going over it. So hopefully you had luck at identifying which one is which. First, we're going to look at the independent variable. Remember, this is what she is changing. So she is actually changing the type of liquid. Notice she used Coca-Cola, lemonade, and water. So she is manipulating or causing this to change. So type of liquid. Remember, dependent variable is what changes in response to her type of liquid that she's changing. And she is, or you could ask yourself, what is trying to be measured in this experiment? And she's measuring how high does the plant grow. So plant height is going to change in response to her type of liquid. That means everything else in this experiment should stay the same. So for example, some things that stayed the same is the type of plant. Notice that all of her plants were beans. She didn't use beans and then flowers and then a tree. She used all the same type of plant. Notice that she measured them all after 1 week. If you measure one plant after 1 week and another one after 2 weeks, they have different lengths of growing time. So we want to make sure that they grow the same length of time. We should also make sure that they all have the same amount of sunlight and also the same amount of water. Oh, sorry, not same amount of water, same amount of soil. So these are things that we should keep the same. And then it says up here, what can Katiana conclude based on her results? So if we look at the results, Coca-Cola was 3, lemonade was 7, and water was 9. So you can probably conclude the plants grew best with water and worst with Coca-Cola. Let's look at example number 2. It says Michael wanted to see what kitchen cleaner worked best for cleaning his counters. He used Lysol, Clorox, Pine Sol, and just water. For each cleaner, he put 5 milliliters of grape juice on the counter, sprayed the cleaner, and wiped it with 1 paper towel. So you have to ask yourself, what is the independent versus dependent variable, and what are some things that were kept the same? So again, try to pause this video, and when you're ready, unpause it, and we will go through the answers. Okay, hopefully you identified the independent variable as the type of cleaner. Notice that he changed his cleaner. So this is what he manipulated or changed in the experiment. Was the cleaner Lysol, Clorox, Pine Sol, or water? So he changed the type of cleaner. The dependent variable is going to be, he is trying to test how clean his counters are. So what's being basically responding to the type of cleaners, how clean are the counters? So how clean are the counters? In this experiment, everything else should be kept the same. So for example, notice that the mess was always grape juice. Also notice that it was the same amount of grape juice. And then same amount of grape juice. We should also note that he wiped it with 1 paper towel, so the same number of paper towels. And also we should note that he said he sprayed the counter. In order for this to be a controlled experiment, he should spray the counters same amount of times. And then our last example says, Taylor wanted to see if eating apples would help her do better on her classwork. The first day, she didn't eat any apples. On day number 2, she ate 1 apple. On day 3, she ate 2 apples. And on day 4, she ate 3 apples. Each day, she recorded the grades she got on her science work. So here, we pause the video and see if you can identify each of these questions. When you're ready, unpause it, and we will go over the answers. Hopefully you guys recognize that the independent variable is going to be the number of apples. So number of apples. She changed how many apples she ate per day. And the dependent variable is what's going to change in response to that, or what was she trying to measure? And she wanted to measure her grades on science work. So some couple things that she should keep constant is she should always eat the same type of apple. Notice that it was always science work. It wasn't math and then English and then science. She should also probably eat the apple around the same time of day. So anything that she should keep the same. Now there are other constants that can be used, but these are just some that I can think of off the top of my head. If you have any questions on the difference between independent and dependent variable and constants, please make sure that you're reaching out, and I hope you guys have a great day.